Hello, this is Ken Ferrie with this week's Boots in the Field report. Big change in the weather this week. Compared to the weather I experienced in Minnesota last week doing a couple of grower meetings, Janine and I got to drive in a blizzard trying to get there. Some places receiving as much as 11 inches of snow. I have to admit it did make it easier doing the meetings without thinking about all the things that needed to be done back home before the spring weather kicked in. The drought map continues to expand across the Midwest with warm, dry conditions and a lot of activity starting to stir. Seeing anhydrous bottles running up and down the highway, guys are working on new seeding and some soybeans have been planted. I like the fact that we can get some spring anhydrous on early. This will give us some time to get that ammonia core calmed down before the corn roots get to it. I always say we need about 2 to 3 weeks before planting when anhydrous is going on, but we really need about 2 inches of rain to calm that core down so it doesn't burn the corn roots. It would still be a risk, though, to do spring strip till anhydrous and then we plant directly on top of that core. You will want to wait for that core to be calmed down before the corn roots get to it. If you are spring strip tilling with anhydrous and we don't get a couple inches of rain before planting, you'll want to no-till between the strips to keep that corn from getting in trouble. Corn getting burned from anhydrous won't show up until about V4, V5, and then the replant gets a little tricky at that point. With warm temps, low humidity, hence the burn warnings we're seeing, the soil surface is drying out quickly. This puts pressure on us when it comes to spring tillage. Remember, 80+% of the compaction service calls I go on in the summer are caused by the first pass made in the spring. Yes, the pass you are about to make. That first pass compaction keeps on giving all season long. In horizontal tillage, it's a compaction layer. In vertical till, it's wheel tracks and pinch rows. You guys know the routine, right? Go down there about an inch below your tillage depth. Take some of that soil, ball it up in your hand. See if you can ribbon it between your thumb and forefinger. If you get an inch ribbon in your loam soils or a half inch in your sands, the horizontal tillage will put in a compaction layer. And check the wettest and heaviest zones in the field, not that high spot up on the hill that dries out all the time. You are the stewards of your own ground. Don't let the neighbor's activity determine when you will till. They may have better tillage or lower yield goals than you do. We are about to embark on the biggest crop of your career, so don't shoot yourself in the foot right out of the gate. A lot of tiling was done last fall, and guys are wanting to chisel the tile lines down with this early opportunity. Remember, any chiseling done in the spring needs to be fitted down within hours. You don't have the luxury of freezing and thawing, breaking up those clods that will end up behind that chisel plow. Our wheat growers are top dressing wheat this week. A few have asked about using nitrification inhibitors on their urea or 32%. My recommendation is to use a urease inhibitor instead of a nitrification inhibitor. Protect the urea from volatilizing off the surface. We'll need a little more time, a little more growth activity to assess how well the wheat survived the winter. But most growers are going to go to corn if the wheat fails, so I would not wait to get it top dressed. If you do wait, you'll need to switch to dry nitrogen or at least streaming the end to try to reduce the burn. Getting reports of beans being planted in some areas. We are big proponents of planting beans early. Looking at the forecast, these beans could be out of the ground quicker than most years, making them susceptible to frost. Now in the cotyledon stage, we can survive a lot, but when we get to V1 or V2, it doesn't take much to knock out the stand. A good gambler knows when to hold 'em and when to fold 'em. Don't gamble any more than you're willing to risk, especially without insurance coverage. Be ready to move when the time is right. Beans planted now through April 15th will most likely be in the same flowering window. So there's not a lot of yield gain in the timing, but you would have them in the ground if conditions changed and delayed planting, like it did for a lot of you last year. As long as everyone has their big boy pants on and accepts the risk, I have no problem with planting some beans, but be sure your landowners and your farm managers are on the same page, and maybe your bankers. A number of growers have already sent in seed samples to check for seed quality and pericarp damage. If you're planning to check some seed, the sooner the better, so you can get the results back in time. For those of you helping us monitor insects, it's time to put out the cutworm lures. If you're interested, let the office know and we'll get you some traps. Soil testing teams are hard at the spring testing. If you don't have your testing needs turned in yet, let's get that done before the gun goes off. Our crews are more efficient if they can clean up your acres when they're in the neighborhood. For those of you signing up fields on the high-res program, let's get those yield goal meetings set up so we can get our yield goals per zone taken care of before the season starts. And also for those of you who are putting fields on the virtual farm visit, now would be a good time to get those orders in as well so we can have the paperwork and the maps made for those guys. As a team, hopefully you have made a plan. Now is the time to stick to the plan. As we say, make a plan, follow the plan. To stay up to date, check out our website at croptechinc.com and subscribe to our podcast, Boots in the Field Report. Keep her safe, keep her moving.